Our federal government has gone power hungry, and we've not only allowed them to have it, but we have fought each other for it. Welcome to the podcast where I don't try to convert people to Republican or Democrat. I don't really care. I just want people to use their brains on whichever side they are on and try and show how both sides, at their bases, are so similar. But we have allowed extremists from both sides to take over. Now, I am a conservative, so I do naturally see things through this filter. But it doesn't matter if you're more liberal or conservative. We can, in fact, still talk and work things out. This country cannot and should not run on just one thought process alone. Today, I'd like to talk about conditioning of the American people. But first, a brief history lesson. We've all heard about how our forefathers were all slave owners and bigots and shouldn't be listened to because they are from a different time. Let's set this aside for a minute because human nature has not and will not change. When the Constitution was wrote, there was a lot of naysayers on the grounds that there was no rights listed that the federal government could not touch. Hamilton stated that to put rights in would muddy the waters, that the government has to rule on what the Constitution says, and it does not give them the right to take anything away from any American, that the Constitution itself is a Bill of Rights, and when asked how will the Constitution keep dictators out, it was simply put, Americans will not allow it. George Washington himself said that the two-party system could not work, that the country would pretty much eat itself, that having a hardcore belief either way is what we was getting away from during the Revolution. I believe everybody needs to read the Federalist Papers. I know they say that our forefathers are dead, so there is no way to know what they actually meant at the time. But there is a way. They are called the Federalist Papers, and you can look them up on any search engine. Let's fast forward about 125 years, because the progressive ideas are not new, but really started digging in with Woodrow Wilson, and the belief that the Constitution was outdated from another time and needed to be updated. There was a living, breathing thing that needed to be changed with the times. That was a hook that brought us in modern times. Because no one stopped and said, wait, the Constitution's sole purpose is to limit federal government. So why is someone that works for the federal government tell me it needs to change? Yes, America, all these issues that we've had lately is state issues. And to let the federal government decide on them, you just gave them a little bit more power. But we will circle back to this later. It was at this time that the president, whose only real power was to protect our borders, could now start slipping more stuff in. By planting these seeds by the mid-20th century, the president already started shifting to the center light and not the states. And by the end of the 20th century, the president was dubbed the most powerful person in the world. We can't fight that, now can we? Or can we? When it started out as the states having the power pretty much loosely connected under the umbrella of our federal government, the feds decided they needed more power and we gave it to them. When the progressive movement seeds started wearing off and people started questioning the motives, the distraction plan was put into place. Welfare for the people, by the people. Americans helping Americans. Sounds great, right? But now the government essentially owns that group of people. With each distraction, they own a few more. As ownership grows, the power lust grows. They say stuff like, for us to keep helping you, we need this, or we need that. And once ownership gets so high, we start saying things like, there's one person that's more powerful than anybody in the world. Then the government can start using that power as a weapon and the choice of when to use that weapon. And this brings us to today, where political correctness is harshly enforced. and not from the federal government yet. It is still using fear as its weapon of choice, but letting its citizens that are owned by it use it freely. Using words like bigot is just ammo. These words are not designed to convert people. They are designed to shut people down. To tell people that people in history cannot be listened to is not designed to convert people. It is designed to shut people down. Everybody knows if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it. And both sides preach this. So how do you stop people from remembering what your job as a federal government worker is? You shut them down. You go at it so hard that you make people actually believe that once one of these words or phrases have been said, that it's illegal to carry on the conversation. The silence and obedience is all our federal government needs. We were promised no dictators would take over because we wouldn't allow it. And here we are, 230 years later, wanting them to take over. We are to the point where we actually believe we need them to run our lives, that we are not competent enough to do it ourselves. We even knowingly and freely say this. We even chant for a different form of government in the streets, even though we don't understand our own. I've met a lot of people that don't even know if we are a republic or democracy. Let me show you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to thee, for which it stands, by saying things like it says God in it, so we shouldn't say it, or that it was written by bigots. We have shut down the conversation and relieved ourselves of having to have the knowledge. I bet 99% of you could fill in the blank in that pledge, but we've been shut down enough to not acknowledge it. Why do we fear something that should have no hold over us? Why do we fight each other for someone else's gain? It's called conditioning. They make us do stuff and say stuff without directly telling us to. Out of this conditioning, out of this fear of political correctness, a candidate will be given, and he will be the embodiment of this conditioning, and he'll be given full power of the weapon, and he will be greeted with open arms. Sounds like a prophecy, doesn't it? Well, he's already been here in the form of Barack Obama. Nobody could say anything against him, or they'd be labeled racist or bigot, right? The fear and weapon came to a head with him. The next weapon they had lined up was Hillary, the first female president, no matter what the cost to make her so. We would not have been able to say anything against her or be labeled sexist. These are the ideas that got Trump elected. Not any news media like Obama said. All news medias hated Trump. They all said that he was a sideshow attraction with no possibility of beating Hillary. The RNC hated Trump because he wouldn't play ball with them either. Every time a major news media said they hated him, every time the RNC said he wouldn't be allowed to run as a Republican, his popularity grew. Both sides wanted Jeb Bush to win the primary. Democrats, because they knew either Hillary would beat him or he would play ball with them. Trump is severely hated on both sides, not because he's a Republican, not because he's a successful businessman, not because of his views on illegal immigration, but because he challenges the status quo. It's all about job security to them on both sides. And how can you have job security in a position that can change at any time? You've got to make the people think they need to depend on you. The ones on the far left really push this idea, and the ones on the right say nothing to try and stop it. So that later, if the plan fails, they can say, look, I was not involved in that. I did nothing to stop it, but I wasn't involved. And that's the case we find ourselves in today. The Republicans are backpedaling as hard as they can, and the Democrats are pushing PC as hard as they can. All because one guy challenged the status quo. That wasn't supposed to be the president, agreed upon by both sides, actually won. And this constant turmoil we find ourselves in today is just lifelong condition-pushing politicians trying to keep their jobs in power, and we are helping them. All the issues we've been bickering about for the last 15 years is supposed to be state-level decisions. Hence, We the people have the power, but we have decided to give our power up and tell the federal government we are too stupid to rule ourselves. Your conditioning has worked. Please take hold of all the power. That's the number one hatred of Trump. He said that he was going to take all the executive decisions, all the power unlawfully taken by Obama and others, and give it back to the people. This was and is the cardinal sin Trump has committed that has brought the wrath of the career politicians down upon him. So in summary, our federal government has gone power hungry because we keep giving it to them. There's only one man that has actually challenged the status quo of DC, and he's hated for it. So if you want the federal government to take all your power, and therefore your rights, I don't care which side you're on, please go to another country that they've already got all the power. I enjoy my freedom. If you're one of the people that thinks we live in a police state, first off, you're probably the reason it's as bad as it is. And please go to one of the many countries where one government body has all the power and tell them all your crazy ideas and see if they listen. Otherwise, shut up and let's get our country back where we the people have control and not our federal government.